What's up,
What is up, man?
my man?
Man, listen. You know how long I've been wanting to get you on here, man.
Oh man,
This has been great. This is so great that I got you on here now. So, first of all, thank you very much for doing this. Everybody who's watching from home, this is Tuesday, August 4th, 2020. This is the 10th episode of my web series, Brandon Robertson Soul Hour. I'm honored and ecstatic to have one of my dear good friends and bassists. This guy is probably one of the most hardest working and most demanding bassists on the scene in New York City. And he's a wonderful person. I've been following him for years, and I remember just him giving me a chance to. He showed me around like some of the sessions when I very first time I like got to
I
go to New
remember that.
York, and I got to meet all the cats, and rest in peace to Lawrence. I got to meet him that night. It was a bunch of people, man, that like you introduced me to, that now that I see where you guys are. So without a doubt, Facebook family, welcome my dear friend Mr. Alexander Claffy. Alex, great to have you on the show, man. How you
Hey,
doing?
I'm great, man. Thanks so much for having me, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you're vacationing right now. So man,
Uh,
how you enjoying yourself?
yeah, I am. I'm doing a little vacation action, and it's great to just get away for a second. But my lady, she's Australian, so she really loves the beach. So we're at the beach. I myself am not a big beach fan, but I've got my bases to keep me warm.
Right.
So I'm chilling. So it's a vacation. Anytime I have this thing in my hands, it's a vacation.
That's sweet, man. That's sweet. And what's the weather like, man? Because we just dodged this hurricane.
I'm praying on let's keep hope this internet stays the way it's been because I'm looking outside and it's crazy up here where I am in the Northeast. The wind's going crazy and I can see the ocean and it's going pretty nuts. But
Oof.
hopefully it holds out. Hopefully everybody's safe and everybody's good.
Yeah, man. It's everybody down here is as safe as we can be. Florida has been kind of crazy.
Yeah,
so
man.
so man, how's New York, man? How's things been up there for you up there in that area?
New York has been good. It's been a mix of, a lot of people have left right off the bat. A lot of my friends,
Mm,
especially from like Israel and internationally, they've gone back, and they're not gone forever, but they're. And I'm just gonna move this mic real quick. Um, they're not. They're obviously not gone forever, but it's been a tough time for a lot of
right.
different people. And I've been keeping up with a lot of comedians podcasts who are talking about the same thing. Up and coming comics are leaving, and even established ones are. So everybody's going through this period of change. But in the city, there's a crew of people that are still doing great work. Like Kyle Poole and Russell Hall just kind of opened up. They have like a studio in their basement. Benny Benak and I have been leading sessions. Emmett
Mm,
Cohen's doing his thing. There's going to be some really cool stuff coming from a lot of different clubs in the village that are getting their streaming thing happening. And, Smalls Spike has been doing a fantastic job of keeping everything going. So people are working in a way, and there are these cafe gigs that are popping up. Some of them are getting shut down by annoying neighbors and the city and people that
mm-hmm.
are always trying to thwart live music, but it persists, it keeps going, and people still have entertainment. So for me personally, working on a lot of new music, learning a lot about audio engineering, trying to stay positive
Mm-hmm.
in this time, which is, it went from 100 to 0. In February I was out with Kikoski and Veronica Swift and all these different people doing bang bang bang, and then March 16th, nothing, which has been really everybody's case. And a lot of people have missed a lot of really amazing opportunities. So it's really sad, but hope is the thing that we gotta hold on to. And I think a lot of people are doing a great job of doing that. Winton and Jazz at Lincoln Center and all these different organizations. So big shout out
Mm-hmm.
to all of them, of course.
Yeah, man, and it's funny you mentioned Veronica, because I remember, and you can correct me if the timeline's off, but I think weren't you guys' last show is in your hometown, right? Or was it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I believe it was when I saw it. I was like, oh man, that sucks, because I just remember it was like the intel of your tour, and then it just went boom, like.
Yeah, it was like I was on the road with Kikoski and we were in Italy
Hmm.
and with this great drummer Elio Coppola from Italy who hooked up the tour, and we got to run into, we got to hang out with Hutch. We saw him in Paris, and Chris Fun, and it was just a really, really good time and a lot of good music, and we had a blast. And we were in Paris for that, in Italy. Joey Alexander, I got to see my old band leader who I met you with when I was young. And then I got back and I did one thing in New York with Charles Owens and Kyle Smalls, and then I went down and did Chris's, and it was great. I mean, we did 2 nights at the Union League, which is across the street from Chris's, and 2 nights at Chris's. It was totally sold out. Super fun. Veronica's incredible, great piano player from Philly named Tim Bray, and Joe Strasser on drums. Super fun. And Larry McKenna, who's like a bebop master of Philly, came and sat in with us. It was just great. And then I got back to New York on that Monday, whatever that was. Maybe that was like the 10th, I want to say. And instantly I pulled into Penn Station, and I got out from Penn Station. I had my bass with me, and I had my girl with me. And I actually had to walk to this like pub gig I was doing with my buddy Chris Bergson. And I sent her home in a cab, because I usually take the chance to take a cab, because something was just up. You could just feel it in the air.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it's just been since then. I spent some of the time in New Hampshire with some friends. I was lucky enough to get out, and I got a lot of good work done on a record up there. But I think everybody's going through it, man, and people are finding different ways to hustle. But it's definitely been, I missed some. I was supposed to play the Vanguard for the first time. Everybody's who's in New York has got a story like, oh, I was supposed to do this, which of course is very minimal in relation to what's been happening in the world. But nonetheless, musicians are suffering and having a tough time, a tough go of it, for sure.
Yeah, and I want to backtrack a little bit, because I've always been intrigued by like bassists who have very strong like family backgrounds, like musical family backgrounds, because it kind of makes sense as to like how they view things and how they see the world for what it is, and through the lenses of and through the audible of music. So for you, I wanted to ask you, man, you grew up in the city of brotherly love. I mean, like that's like that's like the creme of the crop. I mean, if you think about the Jones brothers and Art Blakey, Ahmad Jamal, Christian McBride, The Roots, God, like you got a track record, Percy Heath. You got a track record of like Philly cats.
Is when you say the Jones brothers. The Jones brothers are from Detroit, but here's the thing. Here's why instantly people will associate Elvin Jones with Philly, is because John Coltrane spent most of his adult life in Philadelphia. From 14 or something on. Jimmy Garrison, born in actually Florida. He was in Americus, Georgia, and near Miami, and then spent most of his life in Philly. And McCoy Tyner, born and bred in Philadelphia. So then the drummers that all come out of Philly from then on are highly influenced by Elvin. It's almost like he's from Philadelphia because of how strong of the John Coltrane Quartet's impact was.
Right.
So is incredible. I remember meeting, Christian McBride when I was really young, and let's see, I mean, I would get to go sit in with like Marsha Ambrosius from Flowetry, and the Tribbets would be hanging out, and I was just like playing electric bass. I just like Jocko and different stuff, and
that's dope.
It was cool, but it was all this stuff. I grew up around Justin Faulkner and great composers like my buddy Dahi Divine and Orrin Evans, of course. Massive influence on me from a very young age. And Christian McBride would come around to the Clef Club. I went to this program called the Clef Club. And, Joey D had spent some time there, Ari Honig, Christian McBride, Jaleel Shaw, Jonathan Blake. And we all know about that famous class from Kappa, Creative and Performing Arts High School. In school at the same time, it was Little John Roberts, Joey DeFrancesco, Christian McBride, Kurt Rosenwinkel, Boys to Men, the Roots.
Right,
So it's just really, it's kind of crazy. And you definitely, the level of bassmanship, forget it, Percy Heath, Jimmy Garrison, Jimmy Merritt, it's the list goes on and on and on.
And so, how did all of those players influence you growing up? Because I seen, your dad's plays piano. Your father's a pianist, and so in your upbringing, was that like a regular sound in your household, jazz, or was it like kind of a collection of different music? Because you play a lot of different music. Just from me watching you, you seem very influenced by other different subgenres aside from jazz.
Oh, that's nice of you to say or notice that. Yeah, it's definitely true. I mean, I grew up with, my dad, great what they call society musician. So he was playing a lot of high society functions as a piano player
Hmm.
for the rich and famous, essentially. And but they of that time they loved Gershwin, Cole Porter, Cy Coleman, Flanders and Swan, all sorts of really niche shit and
Right.
or stuff. Sorry, and so that was kind of what I came up on Broadway. And my mother was a talent agent on Broadway, and
Okay.
so I grew up. I did a lot of voice acting on Nickelodeon and stuff like that. And my sister and I did some Gillette commercials. She did like Sesame Street, and we both did Blues Clues. We did all this stuff, but it was really show busy. But there were always show tunes around. And then on top of that, my mom was a huge Clapton and Beatles fan. My
Hmm.
dad was not into rock at all, but he loved Motown. So he was playing and singing everything from 1920 all the way up through the early 2000s. I mean, at the end of it, when I was playing in his wedding band in the end of high school,
Hmm.
he was playing like "Hey Ya." So he was like, he got from all the way, but he knew, he'd know the verse on, I don't know, I concentrate on you or something like that. I don't know if
Right.
there must be a verse
Hmm.
on that, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I
So
know what you're talking about. Yeah.
that's kind of what I grew up was like all this music all around. Then he'd be like, "Oh, check out this Sergio Mendes," but it was just always like I played piano, and then I switched and I played trombone, and then I wanted to play guitar, and I played drums, and I wanted to play it. And my dad was like, "Oh man, you're jack of all trades. You got to pick something." And so my friends, one of my really good friends, he's down in Miami now, Jason Matthews, uh,
Okay.
great keyboard player. He's in this band called Electric Kiff. He's in another band called Twin. He played with all these different artists, Roosevelt Collier. He played with all these guys around the Miami scene. He's been playing there forever. But we grew up together. And he had a prog band when we were in like sixth or seventh grade. He like loved Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Rick Wakeman.
Really?
All this. Yeah, so I wanted to play
That's
keys, and they
cool.
were like, "No, we loved Weather Report and all that. We need a bass player." So I went to the guitar store, and they had a Mexican J bass like this, but it was in much worse shape. And I just heard on the radio. I heard like AC/DC, and I was like, "Oh, that's easy. I can do that." So I saved up
Right.
and bought that. I was into a lot of rock, heavy metal, and stuff like that. And then I heard Maynard Ferguson came to my high school. And so my dad had jazz records around because he can blow too. He's good. He loved Oscar Peterson and Tatum, Clifford Brown, like anything Crystal, like amazing, improvisation and technique.
Hmm.
He loved that. So then I found out about Maynard, which led me to Birdland, which led me to Jocko, and then that was it. I was
That
just
was
like
it. Yeah.
totally hooked in Jocko land, and then from there, Miles and Train and Art Blakey, and it went on and on and on.
Oh man, that's great, man. And it's I'll say very briefly, all of those people, Jocko, even we talked about Christian earlier, they've had some kind of musical influence on me in terms of the way I hear bass. And Philly bass players have a thing. Like you guys have you have a thing. Like Russell Hall said this to me one time. I'll never forget this. He's like, "You Florida cats got this hump in y'all playing," and I was like, "What you talking about? You from Florida too, man? Like you got the same, you have the same bounce." And he's like, but I never understood what he meant by that until the second time I went back to New York, and then I started hearing different bass players who were from different scenes, and I'm like, I get it. And
Yeah.
every bass player I've heard from Philly all got like this thing. It's like this edge, and it's so hip, and you can hear it.
Oh, that's
You can hear it, man. So my next question for you is, how did you make that transition from the Philadelphia scene, which correct me if I'm wrong, has a thriving jazz scene in terms of cats that can play, especially with the different schools that are there. But how was it transitioning to New York? I mean, you're at this point a fish in a large pond, going, and you're in an eclectic pond because now you got people from everywhere in this one
yeah.
central location. So explain a little bit about that transition for you when you left Philly to move permanently to New York.
Yeah, well, the internet cut out in the beginning, but I got it from when you were talking about being influenced by Christian.
Mm,
So I think I got most of it. But Philly bass players are super have their own thing,
mm,
and that goes for all styles. I think it's just a city of great bass playing, because it's just a city of groove music, of Black American music, straight up. Like all you
mm.
can go on the same block. You can, on Sansom Street, you got Chris's Jazz Cafe and Time. Um, Shameless self promotion. This Saturday, I'll be doing a live stream from Chris's. If you want to tune in, it's a Pat Martino fundraiser with Peter Bernstein and Byron Landam and Tim Bray. It'll be great. Anyway, had to do that.
No,
But
please do it
no, I
again.
got a lot. People are on, so I just got to let you know. Saturday
Yeah.
night. Anyway, moving forward. Um, yeah, I think that I could. It would have been a lot harder if I'd have moved from like, you know, I'm trying to think like the center of Canada and had never, there's no scene or something like some village where there's no music or something. And I'm from a town outside of Philly that's pretty dry itself. But when you're coming from Philly, like I remember going to a jam session to sit in and somebody being like, no, 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 Vincente Archer's here from New York. He's going to sit in. Or I remember somebody being like, yo, tonight, Christian McBride's going to pop through the Clef Club.
Oh
Pardon me.
wow.
Or, Curtis Lundy, we're going to be opening for Bobby Watson and Horizon next week with a youth ensemble. And Curtis Lundy pulling me aside and saying, play on a ballad with two fingers. If I catch you not doing that, I'm going to beat you up or whatever, or something like that, which was the best thing in the world. Or
Right.
having all the bass players that were around Philly at that time, Madison Rast, Mike Boone, Lee Smith, all these different people and piano players. I got to play with Edgar Bateman and Sid Simmons and Alfie Pollitt and all these guys and Bootsy Barnes and hang out with Mickey Roker. And so I was getting, it was definitely, it's a smaller pond because it's just not as many cats as New York. Simply put, it's an amazing pond. Sometimes,
Right.
I mean, the musicianship level in Philly is so incredibly high, but you go to New York, which is what it is. It's just a lot of people and an amazing scene. It felt crazy doing it at 18, but I had to do it because I knew that I was already working a lot of the gigs in Philly. I wasn't the top bass player in Philly, but I was coming out of high school and I was doing well. And I knew that I had to move onward to New York to make it happen,
Mm-hmm.
and to learn from all these different, and then you get to New York and it's just incredible. You go to LPR and you got Bernice Travis playing with the Robert Glasper Experiment and it's like super badass. You go a couple blocks over to Zinc, you got John Benitez playing with
Ooh.
like Axel, and then you go down to the Blue Note and you got, I hear somebody playing with Christian Scott or whoever, and then you go over to the Vanguard and you got the Bill Charlap trio with Peter Washington. I mean, it's endless. Especially, I feel like in the past couple of years, a couple of clubs have closed and maybe it's slowed down a little bit. But in 2010, when I moved there, it was like I was at Smalls every night because it was just like reality slapping you in the face, and it's a tough one. But I think a journey to be more eclectic has been something that I've always been on because I always dug Jack Bruce. I always dug John Paul Jones. I always dug James Jamerson. Even if I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know them by name, I always dug the Sergio Mendes stuff my dad put on. I always dug musical theater. And I loved, like, I listened to like Lamb of God and stuff in high school. Like I've just been all, and I like it all, good music and bad music. I just like good music, and as well as like Big L and Biggie and like, Tribe and all, it goes all over the place. So the point being that in New York, you can work as just a specialist really and do
Mm-hmm.
one thing. Now lately, I don't think it's been that way because I think that the music scene, the amount of gigs and festivals for, people playing physical instruments has come down a little bit. So now you kind of have to be able to do everything, in my opinion. I think so. And that's
Right.
what it doesn't really matter to me what other people do. For me, that's when I'm the happiest.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's man, that's very noble, man. Because like at this in these times that we're in right now, it's just it's discouraging. Like I remember, I had a great conversation with our good friend Paul Sakivi. He
Another Florida guy.
yeah, he was just telling. I checked in on him and I was like, man, how's it up there in New York? Because I'm starting to see cats coming out to play again. And he said, man, it's been it's been a slow transition. It's slowly, where like you mentioned earlier, people were just kind of slowly starting to transition out. And but it got to a point where when I did last speak to him, I said, "Man, New York is like a hot spot right now. You know, it's crazy. Now it's the roles are reversed. Like Florida, no one's really working right now. Like I haven't been working at all. So, you know, to hear that kind of transition for you when you moved to New York to get that kind of exposure to that much music at a time. I mean, that's overwhelmed. You wasn't overwhelmed? Like you didn't
Oh,
feel
I was completely overwhelmed every day.
like
It was
being in
awful.
Smalls. Like I remember being in Smalls for the first time and just sitting there like I can't do this. This is like going to
Oh,
Fat Cats across the street and then seeing Harold Mabern playing by himself, and people are just like doing the shuffleboard stuff, and I'm just like, yo, he's playing the most killing solos right now, and no one's listening. I am overwhelmed with sheer like what's going on. So yeah, man, that's
yeah.
great.
I mean, that's what it is. Like, that stuff, I didn't even care about at first. I was just like with the people talking, and I was just like so enamored
Mm-hmm.
all the time. I was like, man, like, yeah, exactly. Like, I remember Kyle Poole and I, and this is like 4 years later, Kyle Poole and I used to play the tap jam. And then afterwards, Mabern would get up and it'd be like church, man. Me and Kyle would be like,
Ooh.
oh my God, Mabern and Farnsworth and like Essiot,
Ooh.
and it would just, the room would just shake, and
Yeah.
people's feet are tapping, and it's just, and I was like, this is what it is. This is what it must have been like being around, hearing those guys in person, because it's Harold. He was, a very big part of it. But in terms of being overwhelmed, yeah, it happens it still happens to me sometimes. I mean, I remember finally starting to get some work and having enough money to like eat and be like, this is dope. This is awesome. And then a wind came across New York. Like, there's this young bass player, Russell Hall, that's moving to New York, and he's like a year before he moved. And then he came to town and he just swept. He just took everybody's gigs. And it was amazing to watch that when somebody truly is that talented and that great,
Right.
they work, and I'm sure maybe when I moved there was an older guy who was like, oh, who's this young kid, and Russell and I are only a year or two apart, but the point, and we're best friends, but
Yeah.
the point is that it's hard at that age. You're trying to identify yourself as a person, as a human being. You're trying to
Right.
get your foot, you're trying to have shelter and food. It's tough. And let alone when you have to like speak, Sir Mr. Ron Carter, one of my biggest influences. I've gotten to take a few lessons with him here and there over the years. He also wrote the liner notes to one of my CDs. He's been very kind to me. But just to be in the same room as someone that you listened to always growing up, or being in Reggie Workman's ensemble at New School. I mean, man, these were like unthinkable things to me, and they do kind of help me in these times when
Mm-hmm.
stuff is slow. I'm like, wow, I really got to spend a lot of time with Jimmy Cobb. I really got to ride in
Right.
the car with Jimmy Cobb and have a laugh. And he told me about hanging. And I think that's one that's going to help get everybody through the day is just the love for the music. And that's what it comes back to. But definitely overwhelming, like, for sure. A lot of the time.
Speaking of overwhelming, man, you just mentioned, and that was actually going to be one of my next questions for you. That I read that you got to work with Freddie Cole and Jimmy Cobb, and I know that you've done a lot of work with Kurt Rosenwinkel, and man,
Oh,
like
man.
what's the how do you? I remember the first time I played with the Count Basie Orchestra, and I just remember Carmen Bradford sitting there and she's telling me to relax, and I just remember how nervous I was because this is the Basie band. This is like I spent, rest in peace, man, to Cleve Eaton. I remember taking a lesson with him and on the phone with him for like 3.5 hours, man, just like him just sharing stories after stories with Basie and his first time meeting Miles and playing with Ramsey Lewis. And so you just mentioned how you're in a car, laughing with Jimmy Cobb, and I can't imagine you sitting there. You're just like, this is Jimmy damn Cobb. This is Blue Note. This is kind of blue.
Yeah,
like
yeah, totally.
like what was some of the things that he shared with you that you can remember that really just like stuck with you, that you were just like, wow, that was for the low. Like
Yeah, totally. I mean, and And you said Freddie Cole in there. I never got to play with Freddie Cole, which is something I'm really
Oh, I
sad
thought
about.
you'd okay.
No, it's okay, but rest in peace, Freddie Cole, and he's wow, that's really sad. But thinking about that, I think everybody that I worked with have gotten to work with, and I'm only 28, and I really hope it's a list that continues to grow and grow, because as I work with these people, I get to learn so much, and
Mm-hmm.
that's number one. But I think that, you know, different people have left many different great memories with me, but sometimes there's like little snapshots that always stick with me, that I think will stick with me through the rest of my career. Like, one of my first, I took lessons with Jimmy Cobb before I ever really played a gig with him
Mm-hmm.
through the New School. And I remember I said, I want to play Whims of Chambers. And he said, oh yeah, he wasn't on that particular recording, but I bet he played it with
With
Paul a
Paul,
bunch of
yeah.
times, and that was his best friend. And I messed it up. I played it on the wrong side of the beat. And the only time he ever stopped me, and he said, hey, hold, stop. Hold on. It's on the other. It was on the other side of the beat. I heard the pickup on the record, but I heard it on the other side, and I had been practicing it the wrong way for a long time.
Wow.
And I'd had that record since I was a kid, but I just never, I didn't put two and two together where the break ended and where the blues started. So, and I got so nervous, I was like, and he goes, Claff, there's nothing to it but to do it. And
Right.
that really helped me through a lot of situations. Many, many nights I was nervous. It was my dream to play with Kurt. Now we're very, very good friends, and I get to learn from him more often than not. Meaning, I get to play with him a lot, and I get to learn from him a lot.
Right.
And focus. That's one thing that Kurt Rosenwinkel has always left with me. Focus, being in the moment, creating something deep in the moment. Be focused. Where are you? Are you here with me? That's what I feel when I step on stage with him, and I love it. The building could be burning down. It doesn't matter. He's going to make some beautiful music.
Right.
And same with Mr. Carter too, getting to spend time with him. And Lewis Hayes, like same
Oof.
thing, like downbeat, first beat of the gig, bang, digga-dang, digga-dang, like we're in it to win it. And same with Harold and Joe Farnsworth, for that matter, playing with them,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I think it is. As a bass player, we're lucky enough to have these passing moments with people, and that's just the musical stuff, let alone the laughs you have off the bandstand and stuff like that. Joey Alexander, kind of working with him, taught me to be very open and use my ears in another way. Everybody leaves something with you, every single person, whether they're 8 or 80. So I love that.
Man, what's some advice that you can give to, or you can share with our viewers, and maybe just to, I have a lot of I have a lot of young musicians that I work with down here in my area, and often times the question that I get asked as the bass player, they'll ask me, you know, Brandon, how do you how do you get to the point where people are calling you to play with so and so? And my response is always, I don't seek that out though. I always just seek to play the gig well, and I let the gig do the talking. So you being a very eclectic bassist, and I mean, I've always been so founded. Like when I first met you, man, and I heard you play, I was like, damn, man, this guy's like, you could tell he's just checked out a lot of stuff. Like I can hear it in your playing. And so what are some things that you could share with the young people, that how would you encourage a young person to say, hey, if you do X, Y, and Z, you can potentially get to this point, because I'm always curious to hear that side of it from a person who moves to New York, because some of us, like I've always wanted to go to New York, but I chose to say, I like family. I'm a country boy. Like, I love playing bass and I like doing my thing, but what advice would you give for somebody who's pursuing that?
Well, and there's nothing, there's no shame in that at all, man. It's all about what you want to do. And family and all that stuff, especially in these times, is super important.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I will say to your question is that I think now we have access to so much information that we're like, I gotta check out Bud Powell. Oh, I gotta check out Cedar Walton. No, I gotta check out Art Tatum. Oh, I gotta check out. There's so much different stuff to check out. Sink your teeth into the history and stay in that place and absorb as much as you can. And just worry about learning the music. There's a whole list of other things, of course, as a working musician, assuming everything comes back to quote unquote normal, which I really hope that it does. Skills about, interpersonal skills and being professional and being on the gig and dealing with other people and doing all that kind of stuff. There's a rigmarole of stuff that you have to deal with and that you'll learn and pick up, and there's no rushing that. But in terms of dealing with the music, focus on really learning things very thoroughly and practicing them very slow and really internalizing things. When you say a tune, and again, I sound like a lot of older jazz musicians right now because they're right. When you say that you know a tune, you know it in all 12 keys, but you know it slow, very slow. You know it very fast. You know the melody, you know where it came from. If you're really hip, you know the lyrics, and also, checking out a bunch of different versions of that tune. If somebody calls whatever, My Romance, and you've only heard the Joe Henderson Trio recording, great. Well, there's a shitload of information in the Joe Henderson.
Right.
It's either quartet or trio. I can't remember whatever that version is. There's a bunch of great information in there, but you also need to check out the great vocalists interpreting it, or Tatum, or whoever it is, to give you a wide spectrum. And that's the thing about New York. That's what New York really whipped me into, is like, you have to know how to really be versatile. And that's what it is. And there's no rush. It's a big mountain of stuff that's never ending that you're going to work on learning. And if you start to feel burnout and you start to feel like I'll never be able to check all this stuff out, I'll never be able to learn all this stuff, then it's going to feel that way. But if you enjoy it, if you really enjoy the process, if you enjoy waking up in the morning and being like, I want to check out this new record, I want to check out this bass player I haven't gotten into, I'm trying to remember my man's name. I just got into him the past couple of days. I've never really dug into him. George Tucker. He played on a lot of great stuff. And I checked out this, I think it's Jimmy Wood's record with Elvin. I'd never heard. It's totally smoking. There's always something new, and there will always be something new just in the history of recorded music that I'm referring to, that era, every day until the day that we're gone. So just enjoy the process and sink your teeth in, and always go to the oldest guys you can find and learn with them, and just, eat the meat and spit out the bones. Take all the good stuff and try and internalize it and use it to the best of your ability.
And to go off of that, to piggyback off of that, when we talk about being a professional musician, when you step out on the scene, one of the great advice that Cyrus Chestnut has shared with me the first time I got to play with him, he gave me the greatest advice. He says, the only way you're going to know that you can actually do this is if you actually go out and you do it.
That's right.
That's the only way you're going to know if you can do it. You just got to get out there and do it. So I really admire, guys, especially the bass players that live in New York, that I watch a lot, that are working and moving around. It's inspiring to see the different projects that they get exposed to, because you were like, man, I wouldn't think that they would do something like that, or they wouldn't play this kind of music, because you might only see them do X amount or a certain type of gigs, so you might just pigeonhole them into this type of bass player. And so I always deem New York bass players as bassists. I can't deem them as jazz bassists, because all of you can literally do other stuff. And so you're right, man. Being uniquely eclectic with and being versatile with what you can do is important. So now we've gotten to the fun part of the show, man. I like to get you to those questions, because I know a lot of people like to hear those interesting stuff. But here's the part of the segment that I like, and here's the 3 records. So every week I ask my guests, they pick 3 songs that have a soulful. Oh, sorry, gotta have a little incident there. There we go. All right, so they usually pick 3 songs that have a soulful meaning, and they attach it to 3 keywords, which is life, freedom, and perseverance. So I asked my friend Alex here to pick 3 songs, soulful songs that have a soulful meaning to him, that connect to one of those three words. So let's start with life. So I can't remember what you picked for life, but what was the tune that you picked for life?
For life, I picked, and I picked these on the fly today, which sometimes I think is the best way to do things in
Oh,
life,
for
is to
sure.
improvise, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that Brian Blade and the Fellowship Band
Hmm.
and Season of Changes, and that's one of the records I got when I was growing up. And I was just like, wow, I want to move to New York and I want to do this. And I remember seeing them open up for, who was it? Cassandra Wilson at the Kimmel Center in Philadelphia. And we sat right behind the drums and I got to see them play that. And I got to see Brian Blade just give 1,000% and shape this song. And the band was, Roland Guerin was playing bass with them, I think, kind of as
Oh,
like a special guest or sub for Chris Thomas.
yeah.
Incredible. And Myron Walden and John Coward, who I'd later get to hang out and play with when I moved to New York. And wow, Melvin Butler, who's in Miami, also got to hang out with him later on. And I always tell them, man, that was just one of the most pivotal moments. So that song is really soulful to me because it's exactly what the title is. It's a season of changes. It's like life. It's what we're going through right now. I think is winter for a lot of people. It's very difficult,
Right.
and it's inspiring. You hear it go from uh, joyous and beautiful to somber and sad to energetic. It goes through all these different stages, and it's. I think I asked John Coward once. I think he was inspired. I think it was by Bach. I can't remember who he said it was inspired by
Hmm.
harmonically, but it's just beautiful, and it just takes you on a journey. And it's one of those songs. Actually, all three of these songs are songs that have stuck with me all through my life. You know.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And then, so are you a big fan of Brian Blaze? Have you? Are
Oh
you?
yeah. Oof, man. Never gotten to play with him, but
Oh
you
man,
know, he's incredible, man. I mean, he's just the spirit. You know, it's just the one thing I always watch Brian Blade. I'm like spirit and love and emotion, and he just gives so much, man, to the music and to everybody that he's playing with. It's always inspiring every time.
man. His so the bass player that plays with him now, Jeff Denson. He was my teacher in college. So it's it's funny
Oh, I
that
don't know. I don't. Jeff. What's his name?
Jeff Denson.
Oh, I don't know him.
Yeah, he lives out in California now. I think he teaches out there. I forget the school that he teaches at, but yeah, he plays on the road now with in a trio with Brian Blade, and they cut a record together. And
Oh, that's great.
man, he's a monstrous bass player, but he kind of has this thing. Jeff has this thing where when I watch videos of him and Brian play, you can see the sheer joy in their face. Like every
Yeah.
time I've seen Brian play twice live, and it's always been a sheer of excitement. Like he just looks excited to be playing drums. It's rare that you can see a musician on stage that stays in that mental state like the entire show. Like you're like,
Yeah.
is that a gimmick? Is this guy really like that happy right now? Like no, he really
Right.
is.
Yeah, he really enjoys it that much.
And do you feel that you're that kind of musician when you play?
Yeah, I think that I have that sometimes. I do have to say that you know sometimes some gigs more than others. Obviously, you can get that feeling, and but I think I've really been trying to just enjoy the music and just being there and just being behind your instrument and being around other people. I always have loved it, and I've always loved it more than anything in the world. But lately, it's really I felt a thing about the everybody does now that we don't get to play together that much. When you do get to play together, it's just like joy. It's like oh, I'm just so happy to be here. You know, I love it.
Right, man. That's I think the perfect selection that you chose for this song with the Fellowship Band because it is a season of changes and this is you're right. It's it's the unknown, it's the uncertainty. But that's
Yeah,
what jazz is too. The jazz is kind of the uncertain. Like when we're in the moment playing, we don't know what's going to happen. So
yeah.
so for your next selection, for let's do Freedom. What did you choose? What song did you choose for Freedom?
And I'm just gonna move over here because I've been leaning over for this whole podcast and
No worries.
moving my gear here for a second. You'll have to pardon me. Um, Yeah. Well, let's see. For the second one was Perseverance, right?
And we could do perseverance. Yeah, I said
No,
freedom.
no,
Yeah,
freedom
freedom.
was the
Yeah,
second one.
yeah.
Uh, okay, yeah. For this one, freedom has so many different. There's so many different approaches you could take when you ask somebody, well, what's a song about freedom? You could talk about blues music. You could delve deep into, to me, any form of, you know, Black American music, African American music. There's music from all over the world that encompasses the vibe and the spirit of freedom and gaining freedom or wanting to attain freedom or the woes of even freedom or anything. There's so much, right? There's so much
Hmm.
there. Um, I thought it would be for me to speak to musical freedom because that's something that I feel like I'm trying to always obtain, and I think all musicians are trying to obtain. And I think Coltrane is one of those symbolic figures that somebody, he practiced so much. He was on his way to musical freedom. He just wanted to be able to do anything that he wanted to do. And there's so many great musicians that we idolize like that. And I selected Charlie Parker with Strings, Just Friends, which is the opening track to Charlie Parker with Strings.
Hmm.
Um, if the song were about beauty, it could also be this song, because it's just so beautiful. But you just hear that opening line come out of the gate and you just realize this guy is completely free. He's
Right.
completely free to do whatever he wants and it's beautiful. He has complete access to anything that he wants to play and he is choosing for you the most beautiful things that he can bring you in that moment. And that was just probably another day in the life of Charlie Parker. It's just he exceeded, I think that's the word, excellence and freedom. And also it ties into the fact that being a Black man in America at that time, he was on probably definitely a greater quest for freedom and was
Right.
battling in the face of not having freedom whatsoever or hardly any there within. So that's something deep for me as to somebody who, was a victim of systemic racism and all these horrible things and had to deal with so much, like so many musicians of the time and this time. We know it, we're on our way. It hasn't changed all that much, sadly, very sadly.
Yeah.
But in spite of all that, this guy he just had complete mastery and freedom within the music. Once it was in the music, it was his domain completely. And that to me is like highly, highly inspiring. And I think of that every time I listen to Coltrane. I almost picked some other, transition and a couple other live the half note, but I saved that for the other ones. But yeah, Charlie Parker with Strings, just that heart plays and the first line that comes out of his horn is just freedom.
I watched the documentary that Christian McBride did recently with American Jazz for the BBC, and he was talking about the jazz cabaret and the jazz cabaret cards that
Yeah.
they had to, and how Parker had his card taken from him for like a year. He couldn't work, and he made a statement that he's like, in that time frame, that could have been literally the demise, the precursor to his demise, because that was their livelihood. Most of these musicians in that time frame, so when you hear later Charlie Parker, like in the early 50s, before, like right before he died, you can, like you said, you can hear this expression of just, I'm just I'm letting it all go. Like whatever happens, happens. And that's why I love Supreme is such an iconic record too, because you can hear the freedom in John Coltrane's playing. At this point, he reached a point of where I've already been broken. What else more can happen? Like at this point, I just have to, So that's a very unique perspective. I would have never thought to associate that particular record with that concept. So that's cool, man. I really dig that. Really
Oh,
dig that.
thanks, man.
So,
Yeah.
so your last one, you kind of slipped it out there, but you
Yeah.
pulled it back. But you pulled it
Gave it
back.
away.
Uh,
Yeah.
so this is for Perseverance. So what was your selection for that?
For Perseverance, I selected a track from John Coltrane Live the Half Note, which was put out in the early 2000s. And it was actually fitting because I just picked up a copy of that on vinyl today, which is hard to find. a vinyl copy of it, and I found one in perfect condition. Thanks to my man Aaron Kimmel, he helped me. He's a vinyl guy, so he helped me look up the right copy to get. Anyway, it's just, I've been thinking a lot about this with the situation that everybody's in. We have to have practices, and we have to have things that keep us sane. Mm-hmm. Easy. We have to have things that we do. That's why prayer has been in human experience for so long. That's why experience. That's why when you go to the sun or you go to the beach, it does something to you. Some people have yoga. Some people they do their podcast. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's whatever works for you.
Right.
But in this example, Coltrane persevered, man, through all the stuff that we just talked about, and also just through his life. He just never gave up, and just relentlessly on a search and a quest to master music, and to bring the music to a new level, and to try new things, and to experiment, and to reach new heights every single night. Mm-hmm. And this is just such a great example of not only the title Song of Praise. He's thinking about praise and practice, and staying in the practice of praising, and being relentless in his search, but also the music yet again reaches another height. This is post Love Supreme. You think you could get any more intense than that, any more musical? He does it again, and that's perseverance in its highest form, in its highest musical form to me.
And Coltrane, man, he's the type of individual. He was the type of individual when you listen to his music. I compare Coltrane. And you tell me, Alex. I would like to get your perspective on this.
Sure.
When I think of jazz musicians who people just could not get, they just couldn't get it, like right off the gate. Like when you first start listening to jazz, and they're like, listen to this person. If you listen to Mingus, if you listen to Coltrane, if you listen to Monk, if you listen to even Ornette Coleman, like these guys have certain characteristics in their music that like people just did not want to sit there and try to figure it out because it was so different. Just which is why Dizzy and Charlie Parker were so prolific, because they did something that people just did not want to accept because it sounded different. And so the freedom and the perseverance that you're referring to with Coltrane, man, it's so deeply rooted because, like I said earlier, when he did, like when you listen to Resolution, like that, man, that song make you feel a certain way. like I could put that on and go to the gym and work out a straight hour just with that on repeat because it's just the intense, but you can feel the raw emotion, and I think that's what makes his music so connected, uniquely connected to people, because it was so raw. It was such a raw emotional palette,
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. It's there's something in his music that just, it makes you feel, man. I think it's the emotion, and there's so much. The more that I study music, and I feel so lucky to be able to, there's more and more music that does that for me in different ways. Mm-hmm. That really makes you feel like every time you turn it on, it just gives you this certain feeling. And for Coltrane, it's the passion, and it's the just like, and I hated all the critics that and stuff like that. There can be sometimes that in it, but it's just this emotion that really speaks every single time. And that's why I think I've connected more with his music than anybody's music ever that I've ever listened to, always. And I always go back to it. I spent this whole morning listening to live in Graz, Austria, Graz, however you say it, in 1962, and it's just unbelievable.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, unbelievable. Check that one out. It's a great one.
How you feel about that new Blakey record that they just, the unreleased?
I only heard the one track. I'm gonna check that out tomorrow morning.
I listened to the and I'm thinking, because these are alternate takes from that live recording, and I don't know if it was. I don't think it was at the Vanguard, because I don't know, because Blakey didn't play at the Vanguard a lot. Like I don't even know if there was a I don't know if you could.
Sometimes, but I think Blakey played at the Vanguard. I don't know how often he played there as a leader,
Yeah,
or when the time periods. Like I think maybe he was definitely very active there early on too. But I think some of it's studio, right? I need to look that
yeah.
one up.
This one, this man, this one was the earlier like Messenger. So this was like after Horace had left, and it's Hank Mobley and Lee Morgan, Jimmy Merritt on bass.
Yep.
I think I can't remember the piano player off the top of my head who's on the record. But man, Lee Morgan is just like burning, man. He is like he playing that ish on there. He's burning on that one. But man, that's a great record. You should when you get a chance to check out the whole thing, man. It's a killing. Well, I wanted to say,
Yeah. It's I'm just looking it up now for us. It's Bobby Timmons.
Bobby Timmons. Yes, yes, yes. I was sitting there trying to figure out. I was like, who is the bass or the piano player on there? Yeah, and this is man, Bobby Timmons. Man, he's playing some some killing lines, man. Both of them, him and Lee Morgan, man, just such young man, such young guys that left so soon. So, um, let me ask you this: we're in the point of the show now, towards the end, where we would ask the audience if they have any questions, or if anybody wanted to ask Alex any questions specific about what we talked about today. I know I had a specific question for you though. What are your future plans right now? What are you currently working on? What if you're going to be releasing any new music, or are you just doing the kind of like virtual stuff? What are your plans are right now?
Yeah, I'm definitely teaching a lot online and teaching on Skype and or Skype. I mean, it's so common to call them Skype lessons, really Zoom or Facebook chat or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But doing that, recording a lot, practicing a lot of electric bass. I'm going to try and delve into some classical music if I can soon. I'm playing a couple gigs a week actually, which is pretty cool. I get this gig in New York at Terremoto Coffee, which is happening. Benny Benack and I have been doing it this week. We have Joe Farnsworth. Last week we had Willie Jones and Eric Alexander. So it's been very good.
Ooh.
And it's been great, and it was a great hang. Wynton Marsalis came down and supported us last week. It was very nice of him, and it's something cool happening in Manhattan. So just trying to stay positive and wait it out, and just staying positive at any means necessary. That's kind of really the name of the game, I think, at this stage for everybody. And checking in, stay connected with all of your friends, stay supporting of everybody, and try and have that compassion for everybody. But musically, I'm just working on stuff. I'm recording some new music of my own, and
Yeah, loved it.
people and happy stuff. So it's great.
Love the Standards record, man. That was a great record, man, that you put out. And
Oh,
I
thanks, man.
like I like the visuals that you were doing with Kurt Rosenwinkel. You guys had he had some visuals that were like floating out there for a bit. And
Oh,
so
cool.
that's good. So I'm glad to see, man, that you're doing well and you're holding your head up. And I'm always rooting and
Oh,
trying to be
man.
supportive for my New York bass players, man, because you guys give me so much hope down here in Florida, because I'm like at the very bottom of the country.
Oh,
so so
man.
I'm like way at the bottom. So I'm like, when you want to talk about isolated, dude, I'm like isolated. So
Yeah.
I'm at the top, I'm at the bottom looking up, like, you guys are holding it down. That's great. you know.
Yeah, we're trying. Come up and visit us when this is all
Oh,
over.
dude, I plan on taking a full week and a half, and I'm just going to not sleep. Like, I can't wait till they start having the late sessions and the hangs, this and smokes, smoke sessions, man. Like, I missed us, man. Shout out to Willem Delsford. Like, he had that
Weller.
session, man. He had that session down, man. So that's I just miss seeing those things happen for you guys. So that's cool that you're back out there playing. So, dude, I don't think I think yeah, I think people are kind of just like chiming out. So, man, I want to say thank you so much for being part of the show. For taking this hour out of your day to do this, and you're on vacation too, so that's even more
Oh
love.
man, of
So,
course, man.
so I appreciate it so much, Alex. I really do. I hope you guys are staying safe. Please stay safe. I know it's. I hope the storm has already passed you by, but stay safe, man.
You too,
Take care.
absolutely. Everybody out there, stay safe.
Yeah, take care. Your health, and I'll be definitely, I'll still be supporting and looking out for what you got going on. And give one more plug in for your gig coming up on Saturday.
Oh yeah. On the internet, I'll be live from chris'sjazzcafe.com. It's a pay what you want situation. It's a benefit fundraiser for the great Pat Martino. And feel free to just come in and donate what you can. It'll be me and Peter Bernstein. It'll be his band, Peter Bernstein's band, with myself, Byron Landum, and Tim Bray, great piano player from Philadelphia. It's going to be a good time. So stop by 8 o'clock on Saturday night.
Nice. Well, thank you, Alex, for joining us, man, this evening. Everybody who's in Facebook land, thank you guys for watching this evening's episode of Brandon Robertson Soul Hour. Next week, I'll be joined by the director of the Brubeck Jazz Summit, Mr. Simon Rowe, killing jazz pianist. And he and I are going to be talking about that wonderful program. I'm actually a faculty on that on part of that summit, so we'll be talking about that in History Records. So join us next week. Alex, take care, man. Stay safe. Thank you, brother, so much, man. I'm looking forward to the hang, man. Once we get once we get through this, man, we're going to hit it hard. So have fun, man. Stay dry, and get your tan back. Get your tan on. All right, guys, take care. Have a good evening.